Here to speak about her experience performing in the original Broadway cast of Merrily We Roll Along, the godmother of our If It Only Even Runs a Minute series, who stole attention nightly as the girl auditioning during opening doors, Lana Allen.
The craft and the stories and the history and the lore and the legends and the stories were passed from generation to generation, from the Broadway veterans to the newbies, from the elders of the tribe, right, Jim? The elders of the Broadway tribe to the newcomers. And these concerts that you guys are doing are really sort of like such a great throwback. It feels like old school musical theater magic to me. I have always considered my experience in the original company of Merrily We Roll Along as my MFA in musical theater from Broadway University. Only because the time we spent together was so intense with the absolute masters of the craft, you know, that we got to go to work every day with Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim and George Firth and the great Paul Giuliani, you know, ushered us all into our Broadway debuts with such grace, and we were taught Broadway etiquette and discipline from the late great Beverly Randolph. You know, it was such a lucky experience, and I was trying to think of stories to tell you, and I could think of about 50, so I just whittled it down to 2 because I know Jimmy's going to talk and he tells the story. So one is about a moment of like complete disaster on the stage, because I know everyone wants to hear those stories. And then one is about a personal moment that, you know, means a lot to me. So to set the stage for the first story, I really have to tell you about the set for Merrily We Roll Along. The concept of the set was designed, Eugene Lee designed it to be a high school gymnasium. So, you know, it wasn't supposed to be pretty. And we had banks of lockers that flanked the stage. So we had these big, like, high school lockers, and we were each assigned a locker, and we were asked to personalize the lockers, you know, and we were encouraged to, like, you know, tape stuff the lockers like we were, you know, the concept was that we were high school students telling the story of Franklin Tepper. So they really wanted to get the feel. So this was our contribution, our personal contribution to set design. We each, like, put our own stuff in these lockers. We put lots of stuff in them. People put their scripts in there, and rehearsal clothes, and we put like makeup and mirrors, and the stuff that you would put in your high school locker. And we taped, you know, magazines, pictures from teen magazines and everything. So you can see them in the photos of the stage. You know, we had these personalized lockers, and they were, you know, constant on the set. So there was that, and then so the number Franklin Shepherd Inc. took place in this television studio, and I was assigned the part of the TV studio cue card girl, and I had to hold up a cue card sign and actually lie down on the stage. My action during the whole scene was I was laying down on the stage, and I had to slither with my back toward the audience, holding up the cue card across the stage, from stage right to stage left, and like ending up stage left, facing upstage, holding the cue card when Lonnie started the song. So, so I really had a front row seat, you know, to that performance every single time he did it. And I actually, you know, from the very first rehearsals, I got to watch Lonnie build that performance. And it was an incredible masterclass for me, you know, my conservatory training, to watch him build that amazing performance every night. And then when he finished the song, my job was to jump up with the cue card and grab the chair that Lonnie had been sitting on that was on casters. That was on casters. So the chair would like swing around, run off stage as the people doing the transition. I think it was that transition that you showed with the, you know, the plaid shirts and stuff like that. The second transition would start. So during the scene change, the actors would come on to sing the second transition. The second transition was really long. And the original transitions, you can read the original lyrics of the transitions in Finishing the Hat. They're really, really interesting, and they're full of topical references trying to tell the audience that we're going back in time. And this particular second transition was all about Watergate and Vietnam and Daniel Ellsworth and people dying of, you know, bad soup and Kent State. And it was, I mean, it was really long. So anyway, so that was the action. So I would, you know, take the chair off, and the other kids would come on, and during the transition, then the whole stage would, you know, change behind them. So, so the day after Ron Field was fired, Larry Fuller, who was an amazing, uber talented, charming, wonderful, user-friendly man, came in on his white horse to try and you know, save us with the musical staging. And one of the first things that he was charged to do was to cut in half and restage that second transition, the one that happened right after Franklin Shepherd Inc. So it was what he did on this first day there, and they figured out an internal cut, so it would start the same and end the same, but like half of it was like cut from the middle of it, right? So they all had to learn that music, you know. They had to relearn all of that music, and then he restaged the whole thing, and it was going in that night. That's the way we did it. You know, we just put stuff in immediately. So they had to learn that. So it was crazy. And it was a moment everybody was like, you know, putting good energy toward the, you know, the fact that this major new thing was happening. And on this day, I don't know why all these things happened, but you know, Lonnie's song, brilliant as usual, killed every single night, right? Just like Don said. So Lonnie finishes inside Franklin Shepherd, just write him any bank, USA, Inc. Thunderous applause, and we hear the ba 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 ba, you know, the transition. And I looked up, and because I was facing upstage, no one else could see this, but I noticed the banks of lights kind of swaying. And I saw that, I just saw them, and all of a sudden it started like being in slow motion for me. And I watched them, and they started to lower, and they hit those lockers. And all the crap that we had put in, first of all, they crashed on stage, and all the stuff that was in the lockers went flying, like in the center of the stage. And I grabbed that chair that Lonnie was sitting in, and I grabbed it, and I wheeled it around, and the caster of the chair flew into the orchestra pit. And I saw Paul Giuliani duck. And it was like all hell had broken loose on the stage. And the kids who were doing this new transition, like all new, they were like, what's going on? Everything was like, there's a lot of noise behind them. And then I grabbed this and I was dragging this broken chair off stage. And all of a sudden it sounded in the pit like a train wreck had happened. And I hear Paul Giuliani screaming bar numbers at the orchestra. Because somehow only half of the orchestra's books had been cut. And half of them had. And so the change happened on stage. But the big change happened, like, you know, cacophony in the pit. And I looked back, I got off the stage and I looked back and I saw Abby Pokerfinch crying. Anyway, so that was a pretty interesting moment, and I thought to myself, people pay $35 a ticket to watch us do that. That's imagine a live theater, though, right? And people have said I was there once, so that's very cool after 30 years. Anyway, the other little moment that I wanted to tell you about is my own personal moment. It's like my own little 6 bar moment on the Broadway stage, you know, as the girl auditioning, you know, the off-key audition. And what I wanted to tell you was that it didn't start off as an off-key audition. The reason that I got assigned the part was that I was one of the top sopranos in the show, and their original idea for that part was that she was like a really haughty soprano, like shrill, like screechatura, we called her, right? And so I was, you know, in charge of making it sound really operatic and really crazy. And so I did that every night, and then my direction was, you know, to sing this ridiculous, you know, soprano audition, and then when Frank said thank you, to get like really mad. You know, that was like Hal's like joke, like he thought that was hysterical. So I did that, but then during previews I got really, really sick, and I never missed a show, but I got really, really ill, and I started to lose my top register, which was really hard because I was singing a lot, you know, in the soprano range in the show. So this one night after a two-show day, it was probably like, you know, a Sunday, or, you know, it was probably like a Saturday night, I just knew that it wasn't going to come out, you know, the soprano, and I had to think of something funny, you know, to replace it with, because it was not going to come out. It wasn't going to come out at all. So I just like opened the door and thought Lucille Ball, and just did this huge off-key, like just completely off-key. And Paula Giuliani laughed so hard. It was hysterical. So anyway, because my voice didn't come back for a little while, so I just kept doing it. And then it did come back, and nobody told me to stop doing it. And nobody ever told me, you know, keep doing it or don't do it, you know, but I just kept doing it. It was getting the right kind of laugh in that moment, you know, and it was, you know, it was 12 seconds on the stage. So anyway, they had bigger, you know, problems to solve than just telling me whether that was a good thing to keep doing or not. So anyway, you know, at the recording session, when we finally, you know, we finally opened the room and closed, and then we were recording the next day, I went to Paul and I said, you should I go back to the way they did it, like the original way? And he said, let me check. So he went and he checked, and he came back and he said, do it the way you did it. Do it the way you always do it. You love it, you love it. So that made me feel so good that I was like, I made a little personal contribution. And of course, the cherry on the top of that Sunday was that last year in Sondheim on Sondheim, Barbara Cook did my part. So you know, and it's funny, I was thinking, you know, 12-second, like a 12-second moment, and I have like this whole story about it, right? And you think about any show, any 12 seconds in any show probably has that story behind it.